Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, said, stand like mountain, flow like water. And when I saw that, it really resonated with me. And I thought, what does it mean to stand strong like a mountain? The stronger you are, the more healthy you are, the more good you can do, basically. The more conscious you are as a person. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, the positivity ratio, that you need 5 positive emotions, and they don't have to be huge ones, but just moments of joy to every one negative emotion, because generally speaking, the brain has a negativity bias. For me, self-care is self-respect. So I say respect yourself every day.
Meet Zara. She's in the school parking lot, staring at her phone. The 4th notification in the last 6 minutes. Another Slack message, another urgent request, another fire that somehow only she can put out. Her daughters are in the building waiting to be picked up. Her son's soccer cleats are in the trunk, and dinner, she hasn't even thought that far ahead. Her chest tightens. It's not a panic attack, not yet, but it's a very familiar feeling, one that she promised she wouldn't allow herself to feel again. Zara is a project manager at a software company, and she's the one everybody relies on. If a launch is falling behind, Zara will fix it. If a client is upset, Zara will calm them down. If a team is overwhelmed with too much, Zara will take on one more thing. Meeting after meeting, task after task, day after day. And when she comes home from work, she has another full-time job waiting for her. 3 children under the age of 10. After-school activities, homework, dinner, laundry, bedtime routines, and her husband who loves her very much but barely sees her when she's this exhausted and on edge. Now, Zara thinks that she should be able to handle all this. She's dealt with high demand before. She's overcome challenges. But last year, it got to a point where it broke her. She started having panic attacks, sleepless nights. She had to take a leave of absence from work. And she told them it was for medical reasons because she didn't want to tell them that it was burnout. That felt too embarrassing. Now the signs are creeping back. Exhaustion, overwhelm, a feeling like she's sprinting through life. And Zara doesn't want to quit her job. She loves what she does, and she loves being so engaged in her children's lives. What she wants is to be able to sustain that momentum without it breaking her. She wants to feel like there's a steady pace rather than feeling like she's so stretched thin. What she wants is resilience, the real kind, not the kind that says, keep going until you break. Today, I'm speaking with Julie Lewis, high altitude mountaineer, expedition leader, resilience consultant, and keynote speaker who has helped thousands of professionals build adaptive resilience through science, nature, and lived experiences in some of the harshest environments in the world. And I'm excited to hear how Julie would help someone like Zara find clarity, reclaim her energy, and build the kind of resilience that sustains a full life. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. Julie, your journey is incredible. I was reading about you. You have Arctic expeditions, high altitude mountaineering, and you've led teams through extreme high paced environments. I guess I was curious, what motivated you to do these really challenging things in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And 23 years ago, I climbed my first mountain to celebrate my 40th birthday. And on top of that mountain, I literally had this epiphany that I was born to do this. My background's in sports science, and I was very au fait with the gym, the squash, the tennis, the aerobic studio, and everything. So I was taking that and putting it into a bigger playground in terms of the mountains, the forests, the ocean. So standing on top of that mountain in 2002 at 5:30 in the morning with people singing happy birthday to me, I was just thinking, this is an incredible feeling. I feel so alive. I feel so connected. I want more people to feel like this, especially women, because everybody thinks of explorers and mountaineers as big, bearded, hairy men. And I just wanted to break that stereotype. And so I thought, I'm standing on a mountain. I'm on a natural high, mountain high. That's a really cool name. I'm going to start a business called Mountain High, an expedition
I love it.
company. So it kind of started 23 years ago. And when I came back to the UAE after the trip, I remember phoning my dad saying, I've decided I'm going to start my own business. It took me a year to actually have the courage to do that, to leave the security of a comfy job kind of thing.
Sure.
And kind of take people to the mountains, to the forest, to the ocean, to the Arctic, everywhere to just stretch stretch their mind, free their mind, energize their body, connect with new cultures. And it was really interesting because when I was a young girl of 7, my father gave me a globe for my birthday. And we used to spin the globe, and I'd close my eyes and say, I want to go there. And then we'd have a chat about that. And that night I would have wild dreams about, dog sledding in the Arctic, in the jungle, in the Amazon. And so I had this kind of Indiana Julie training at 7 years old. And it took 33 years later to remember, oh my gosh, that little girl that had all those childhood dreams. And 33 years later, she's starting to live them and then actually saying to other people, come with me, take my hand. I know how to train because of my backgrounds in sports science. I know what clothing and equipment you need. We've got the best guides. We've got the best equipment. So literally over the last 23 years, Jay, I've been leading multinational teams of men and women to incredible places, some remote, some unpredictable, some very predictable, to build that real-time confidence, real-time adaptive resilience because things change. And so it was something that's definitely in my DNA from that 7-year-old child with the globe to this 63 years young woman that has just got this appetite for adventure and really uses nature as a backdrop for as many of the programs that I offer, because I think, Albert Einstein said, look deep into nature, then you will understand everything better. Because nature has cycles of growth, it's not always on, sometimes the trees are in full bloom and sometimes they're stripped naked, because they know the snow's coming, so it's this renewal and recycling and re-energizing. So there's, this whole thing of recovery and then support and then flourishing and then resting and then flourishing. So yeah, I think, nature has been my biggest teacher, and to take people away from screens, air-conditioned heated offices, into nature is just really one of the best ways to boost your immune system, give you more clarity, broaden your perspective, build real-time resilience. And it gives you lots of stories to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think in today's world, it's becoming more and more prevalent that we need to be more proactive on being out into nature because it's so easy to be on the screens and to stay in, let's say, heated indoors. Before we started recording, I was telling you how cold it is over here. And I do still get out there, even though I don't always love when the wind is hitting me really hard in the face and I'm a little cold. But hey, that's teaching me resilience too, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about nature a little more. Why is it so effective? I mean, you could train someone to be resilient and talk to them about it and give them all the research and the lessons and give them some tools. And it seems like your perspective, Julie, is getting people into nature and really having them experience it proves to be more effective. And I would love to learn from you why. Why is that so much more effective in your eyes?
Yeah, I think nature is a great metaphor. Lao Tzu, for thousands of years ago, said, stand like mountain, flow like water. And when I saw that, it really resonated with me. And I thought, what does it mean to stand strong like a mountain? And I say to clients, what does it mean to you to stand strong like a mountain? That's stable, resilient, grounded, weathering the storms, full of potential. I mean, mountains are magical places. They're very spiritual places. They're very grounding places. So, the stand like mountain, then the flow like water. What does it mean to flow like water? Water is the only element that exists in three forms. It will adapt to the environment it's in. It always, always finds a way. The river is going to the ocean. It doesn't back up and say, no, 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 I'm scared, I'm scared. It just knows that it's going. So I think water is a great metaphor for, flow, and adaptation and sustainability and resilience. The other element I brought into that quote was think like a forest, so I stand like mountain, flow like water. Why do I say think like a forest? Because when you think about forests, it's an ecosystem, and the roots are all interconnected, and the trees don't compete with each other, they collaborate. They,
Mm,
if one tree needs some extra nutrients, they send like an IV drip, say, oh, our colleague over there needs some, extra water, and they send the water because they realize that the health of each individual tree impacts the health of the whole forest. So if a
yeah.
team and an organization could think like a forest and say, who are the trees in my forest? Who do I need to look out for? Who do I support? Am I grounded and rooted in my values so that when the wind blows and things change, I stick to my values and I, bring my team in. So something as simple as that, what does it mean to stand strong like a mountain as a leader? When do you need to flow like water and let go and say, hey, the universe, help me out with this, because standing rigid doesn't help. You need to be flexible and let go and not swim upstream. And then when do you need to breathe, like all the trees in the forest, we give them CO2 and they give us oxygen, so they're this ecosystem. So, the
Well,
community. Um, yeah.
with the trees, what I love about that metaphor is if a tree were to say, I'm making it all about me and forget these other trees, not only would it harm the other trees in the forest, it would harm that tree. Right? That tree itself, if it were to isolate and this, which obviously this can't really happen, but we're using the metaphor. But if it were to disconnect from the other trees, that tree would wither, that tree would die, that tree wouldn't survive. And so if we pull that metaphor into how teams operate, what I learned from that is each individual needs to not make it only about themselves and what they get out of things, but how they are contributing towards the greater team effort, vision, the goals that everyone is aligned towards.
Yeah, definitely. You've hit the nail right on the head, because an organization is an ecosystem. Nature is a complete ecosystem. Everything's interconnected, We're all connected through water, through the land, through the air that we breathe and everything. So if something falls out of sync, then we soon know about it, And so that's that
Mm,
impact. So I'm very big, I say we have two homes. And the first home is our body, the body that we live in. And the second home is the planet, the earth. So take care of both of them because they're in this symbiotic relationship. If you're feeling good, you're much more likely to take care of the planet. But if you're feeling not so great, you're not going to care if, there's a piece of litter there or, something's dying in the forest. I think, the stronger you are, the more healthy you are, the more good you can do, basically, the more conscious you are as a person. So I think, healthy teams, healthy individuals, healthy teams, healthy organizations. It's the same, healthy individual, you take care of yourself, you take care of the planet. so the planet can take
Yeah.
care of us. Yes.
And so when we bring that into how that applies to leaders, teams, what are some of the things, as you've worked with so many groups, what are some of the patterns that you see in leaders who are thriving through the chaos and others who are burning out through the chaos? Talk to me about the patterns that you notice.
Yeah, I think, self-awareness is huge in leadership. To be aware of your strengths, aware of your values, aware of your leadership style, and, to be able to understand other people, to be able to listen rather than react, and command. It's actually to be what I would say, a Socratic leader, to engage everybody, get everybody's input, even though you might need to make the decision yourself. So a leader is very self-aware and can self-regulate and very socially intelligent, that can see that somebody might be struggling or needs some help, or something's not quite right. So really, leaders that I see flourishing, they are thinking, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, hydrating. They've nailed the kind of silent energy practices. They spend time in nature. They believe in community and collaboration. They've got this integrated system of self-care, so that they come from a position of strength and not burnout. And so then they epitomize a great leader, basically, because they're not saying, yeah, you have to be in the office at 7 and you leave at 9. you know it's I'm just going to keep pushing, pushing, pushing. And we all know that you can't keep sprinting. You might have times of like deadlines, and you all work really, really hard, and then you take a break. It's like I can't lead 2 expeditions at once. I can't take care of everybody on an expedition. You need to have the base camp. You need to have somewhere where you can recover and regenerate, so that you have something to give instead of burning out, basically. So I think
Yeah, well,
leaders
the
just
example you
know.
gave earlier
Yeah.
of nature was really effective for me, which is, in nature, things aren't always on. There's always periods of rest. There are
Yeah.
seasons.
Seasons.
And when we bring that into an individual, they need to have those seasons as well for themselves, and also allow for those seasons to be for the individuals of whom are looking to them as a leader. This morning, I was getting coffee with my wife, Alex, and I was talking to her about how I think the thing that makes all the difference between people who are in that state of go, 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 burning out, not leading well, and the person who can be able to self-regulate the way you were describing, is having that space to be able to be self-aware and observe within one's own mind. So in other words, if I'm just operating under one neural pathway in my brain where I just go from one thing to the next, and the next, and the next, and I have no opportunity to pause and observe, wait, what am I doing? Is this effective? Am I treating people the way I would like to treat them? Am I handling this well? If that moment of pause isn't there, then one can never improve. It's impossible, because you're always going to be going down the same pattern. So I'm curious to hear from you, Julie, when we say self-awareness, having that ability to pause, how does one cultivate that more?
Yeah. I think, that's that self-regulation, realizing that if you feel that we talk about a blue mind, which is a calm, focused state, a red mind, which is, kind of stressed on. And we need to be in the red mind sometimes, but not all of the time. And then we talk about a gray mind, which is burnt out and frazzled. So a leader will understand, okay, I need to be in this high demand time, but then I also need recovery time, and that puts me into my blue mind. Go for a walk, breathe, do something to reset my nervous system. Ask for help. That an expedition leader, sometimes it needs to pull on other people. Your guides, the rope. This asking for help is a huge sign of self, because you can be a big caretaker, and often people are, that when I say two expeditions, I often think of people, the one at work and the one at home, because they've got a role in the office and their work life and in the community. And then they've got the home life as well, as a wife, a mother, father, that takes a lot of energy. So I think energy, to recognize what gives me energy, how can I renew my energy, how do I know, what do I do when I feel my energy's running out and I'm making not so great decisions, I'm tired, I've got brain fog, I'm losing my temper a little bit more, I'm irritable, I'm getting palpitations, all of these signs that's actually your body just saying, you're out of sync. It's not to be shame. It's just like, this is your body's way of protecting you, saying, hey, you need to stop. You need to do something, And when people
Yeah,
don't
it's a signal.
stop, it's a signal, So I would say to people, there's nothing wrong with you. It's actually a sign of an overloaded nervous system. So don't feel bad about it. Really just say, hey, my body's working. It's actually trying to protect me, and it's just recognizing that I'm in this constant overload, and it's warning me to stop.
Yeah.
To
And
breathe.
I appreciate that you brought up the fact that it's not just work, it's also what responsibilities we have outside of work. And
Yes.
in Zara's story, for example, she has young kids. She needs to prepare dinner for them. She needs to take them to their after school activities. And of course, she has a very demanding job. And I guess how would you work through the sense of responsibility that someone feels? So in
Yeah.
other words, okay, Zara feels like she's responsible for the 3 kids. She's responsible for her husband. She's responsible to fix all the problems at work. And because of that, the pressure builds.
Yes. Yeah.
How would you work through that with her?
Yeah. I think initially is to kind of remove that shame, because often people feel guilty. It's like, I need to be this superwoman or this superman. I need to have everything under control, the perfect wife, the perfect leader, the perfect. And it's just like, no, take away that shame. Just realize that what you're feeling, some of these symptoms, this anxiety, is very normal. So,
Yeah.
we can work on that, to stop being the fixer and the emotional caretaker, everybody, to actually become the leader and become, the master rather than the victim, and to kind of set some healthy boundaries, to be able to self-regulate and just say, hey, I'd love to help you. I can do that tomorrow. Or I know somebody who can help you. Or it would really help me if you did XYZ, wash the dishes, put your clothes away, um, you know, take this off me, just for a little while. So I think it's actually, setting some healthy boundaries, like no calls between, I don't know, 5 and 7, because that's when I want to be with my kids. We're having a family dinner, so I think setting healthy boundaries is a big one, and saying no so that you can say yes to yourself and not feeling guilty about that, saying, I'd love to help you with that. I can help you during, tomorrow, or somebody else can help. So that you're offloading a little bit, delegating. And that's a sign of a conscious leader. When I was just last month in Zanzibar running a retreat, I had 5 business coaches on the retreat. And, they realize the importance of actually stepping back and recharging their own energy, because they're giving, giving. And so we all helped out. I could run around like a headless chicken trying to make sure everything's okay. But I was like, I have, people that I coordinate, and I'm the kind of conductor of everything, so that I know that, I need quality recovery time so I can show up the next day and be a great retreat leader. So, setting boundaries, I'm going to be in bed by 9. I'm not going to be up till midnight, chatting around, So I think it's these boundaries, to know what you need and to not feel guilty about it. It's too much demand and not enough recovery and not enough support. So that's it, and just say, hey, I've got this, and this going on right now. I need to lighten my load. I need you to help me with this. And I am just going to close the door now, the bathroom door, go and soak in the bath. Nobody, just leave me alone, And everybody understands that, peak performance, even as an athlete, peak performance requires QRT, quality recovery time. And well-being, how can I give to myself? Sleep well, make sure I'm eating well, make sure I'm staying hydrated, because often people, when they're on the go, they're on the run, they forget to eat, or they eat on the run, and then they have digestive problems, or they're not staying hydrated. They're getting 2-3 hours, 4 hours sleep. It's not enough. So it's looking at all these parameters and saying, how am I thinking? Is my self-talk is like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this? Or is it, I need some help, I wonder who could help me?
Yeah.
So the self-talk.
Yeah. There were 3 words that you said that I want to highlight. I want you to expand on if you're okay with it.
Yes.
The 3 words were, so I can.
Yes.
So in other words, I am doing this for time. I'm using this time to recharge, reset.
Yes.
So I can. So it's the reason why I think that's so important, Julie, is because I can imagine Zara in this story saying, yeah, but I have to be there for my kids. I have to do this. I have to do that. Because the person it's based on a real person. And I know how she would respond. And well, yeah, but who else is going to do it, right? And then if I just need to, I'm the only one who is in this position to. And the way you worded that, so I can, it's so she can be a better mother. It's not just for her own selfish reasons of wanting to just drop everything and be free of her responsibilities. If anything, no, it's the complete opposite. It's so you can be better as a mother, as a project manager, as a leader.
Yeah, for sure. To kind of not be the fixer, thinking everything depends on me. If I'm not there, everything's going to fall apart. It's like, nobody's indispensable. We think we are, but at the end of the day, somebody will rock up and sort something out. It might not be the way that you wanted it sorted out. So I think rather than taking everything on your shoulders and saying, I need to be the fixer, I need to, have the micromanage absolutely everything, to actually say, no, I'm the leader, I'm accountable, responsible, and to be count honorable. I talk about accountability. To be count honorable, you need to come from a position of strength, not from a position of like anxious, overwhelmed. So that really is actually saying yes to yourself. For me, self-care is self-respect. So I say respect yourself every day, blocks of time where you're just not available. People know in the morning, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I meditate for 20 minutes, I stretch for 20 minutes, I have hot water and lemon. I don't even look at my phone. People know, do not contact Julie between 5:30 and say 7:30. And then after 7:30, if it's a bit of an emergency, because I think, this sacred time in the morning, how you start your day and then how you end your day, having some reflection time. What went well today? What could I do better? Who helped me? Who can help me? What was great? What brought me joy today? Did I drink enough water today? To actually just reflect on the day, because this is a real superpower, because that helps you make tomorrow better. So I think when as Socrates says, know thyself. Okay, what triggers me? What makes me feel tired? To be able to understand that, I didn't eat enough yesterday. I didn't get much sleep yesterday. I didn't take a walk outside. I was indoors all day. I was answering calls all day. I was in 5 back-to-back team calls. So you get to know what are these that make you always on, and say, I'm human. Like anything else, when the computer's not playing up and it crashes, you just unplug it, leave it alone. And we need to do that for ourselves. We just say, time out, I'm having Zara time. In my diary, I put me, and that means I've got an appointment with myself. And so when people say, "Can I see you at 2 o'clock?" and I say, "Oh, I'd love to. I have a commitment at 2." They don't need to know I'm going for a massage or I'm actually just going to sit in the park for an hour because I just want to decompress. So I think it's actually being kind to yourself, knowing that
Mm.
doing that, it allows you to do so much more, to come back
And when
stronger. Yeah.
and to break the pattern of, let's say, Zara's case of saying yes to everything
Yes.
and giving her time to everyone, I want to be clear for everyone listening. That's a hard thing to do. It will there will be resistance that's going to come up.
Mm.
Absolutely, there will be, because you've been operating under one way, which is, I don't want to let these people down. I want to show them that I'm good enough. I want to be sure that I'm always performing. So when you set that time, that me time that you described, and then someone attempts to, let's say, infringe on it, not with bad intention, maybe they say, "Hey, it's in that moment of decision where you need to have the courage
Yeah.
to say no." And I do think that takes a lot of courage,
It
right,
does.
Julie?
It does. It does. And how we say no is, you can kind of soften it and say, "I would love to, however," not, no, sorry, no. It's, "I'd love to, but," because when we
This
hear
is
the
me
word
time.
but,
No.
yeah, just say, I'd love to, however, I have a commitment. I can help you at," and you set the time. This is about setting healthy boundaries, and that goes with your team, with your organization, setting agreements in place, and also with your spouse, with your partner, with your kids, and say, this is how we help each other, you know, to clean up your bedrooms, to help with the dishes, to, you know, help each other, and I think that is healthy because it teaches, your kids that, responsibilities and values that, you can't just drop your laundry everywhere and, put, get everything out of the cupboard and not put it back and, not help out. So I think, I'm a big team player. So I think it's important, to make it fun. Let's go out, let's do this, let's help each other, let's support, let's have some fun. So that you interrupt these patterns of, "I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Nobody's helping me. I've got to do it." Most people like to help. If you ask them, "Could you help me with this?" Not many people would say no. I mean,
Yeah.
asking for help
A
is
lot
a
of times
real
it's a
sign of
pride
strength.
thing.
Yeah, it is, and it's a
But
vulnerability, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it's pride, and when you look at it from that perspective, I think that could actually be helpful, which is to say, I am being too proud here, and
Yeah.
the humble thing to do would be to ask for help. So in other
Yes.
words, the original way you were thinking was, the better version of me takes it on. But when you consider what you and I are talking about, it's a different perspective, which is, no, the better version of you is humble. The better version of you is not prideful. The better version of you acknowledges that you can't take more on and you need to ask for help. And just like with anything, I would encourage anyone to start small. Don't try to push yourself too far here. Maybe ask for help in something small and then build on it from there.
Yeah, yeah. And people, generally speaking, love help. I mean, Brené Brown, Daring Greatly, that vulnerability edge. When I was writing my second book, I'd got this messy first manuscript. And normally you just send it to the editor and they kind of make some comments and then you send it back. I was really thinking, to really make this something special, I can invite 10, 12 of my colleagues from different backgrounds, different ages, different nationalities, and say, "Could you help me? Would you just kind of read 1 or 2 chapters or the whole thing, if you like, and just give me your feedback?" And so, because it was about water, I hired a boat and I invited, it was actually 17 in the end, and I printed 17 messy manuscripts off, gave it to them, and I said, "I know I've already written one book, but I need some help on this one. I'm not thinking I've got all the answers. Please just read it. It's not about spelling or grammar. It's about, is it interesting? Did I miss something out? Was it, you know, and I got incredible feedback. And so that took my book, when it went back to the editor, to a different level. And everybody said, Julie, you're so brave. I mean, showing your work and letting people actually make constructive, comments on it. Like, and I said, yeah, but that's the only way I'm going to get better. That's one example, but just, yeah, I mean, getting help carrying the shopping bags, opening the door, I mean, simple, as you say, simple things.
Yeah.
Oh, could you pick this up for the supermarket for me? I mean, having a pool of people, because I'm sure Zara has lots of colleagues that also have kids, and maybe, having a pool of people can, you do the kids pick up because I've got XYZ, so I think this is asking for support, from your neighbors, from the community, and then the kids see that, and that's a great modeling, really, isn't it? Because they don't see this woman or this man, mom and dad, absolutely, burnt out, no time for them. They actually just see them interacting, collaborating, and asking for help, and yeah, making things work. Yeah. So I think
Right. Well,
yeah.
I think what first off, by the way, that was very helpful for me to hear because I'm in the middle of writing my book. And so I have not gotten to that place yet to share it with people. Not because I'm holding back. I have more work to do before I can even get to that stage. But I'm gonna take that advice and I'm going to be sharing it with a few people who I really look up to and asking
Yes.
them if they would be open to giving me some feedback. And the other thing that I keep going back to the trees in my mind. I think that was really helpful for me because again, if the tree is just taking it all on and never asking for help, that tree is not going to make it. If you can just put yourself into that mindset, it's really helpful. It's one where you can realize that everyone will improve when you're willing to ask for help, and when it's going to be helpful for everyone. Now, there was something you talked about before. You said your daily morning routine of meditation, and I wanted to ask you more about that because in Zara's case, she struggles with anxiety. She had panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I know, of course, a practice like meditation helps with that. So what are some of the tools that you either use yourself or you recommend for others to work through something as disruptive as high anxiety?
Yeah. I think, on expeditions, when I've seen people getting anxious, whether we're kind of close to the summit and there's less oxygen in the air and they're really feeling it, or, they feel a little bit too much out of their comfort zone, it's just really, if it's safe to, I would just say stop, and I'll literally kind of hold the hands and I say, close your eyes and then just focus on your breathing. So breathing in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale. So you basically, you're kind of regulating your nervous system and putting your body into this parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. So, I mean, it's not always possible to do that, but it's just really giving that support. So breathing is really, really important to actually slow down your breathing, because when we're stressed or anxious, we tend to like breathe in our upper chest, and we need to breathe from our belly. To just, to look around you and to come back into your senses. What can I see? I can see a tree. I can hear a bird. I can smell the forest, So to come back into your senses, to ground, to do a pattern interrupt, basically, because it's easy to get into this catastrophe mind loop of going round and round and round, and it's just stop, to actually have that in your mind saying, I know what's happening. Thank you for showing up, but, stop. So it could be, I mean, aromatherapy oils, I mean, the art of calm is, what, were you to look at, a beautiful picture or look at nature, that would calm you down, looking, there's a great book by Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, Blue Mind, and it's basically the neuroscience of what happens to your brain when you're in, on, around, or even underwater. So, that when you see blue spaces, when you look at water, when you look at a forest, when you look at a flower, it actually, it's in this awe and inspiration, so breaking that pattern. So nature for me is a good one. Breath work, meditation, moving your body, just shaking, shaking out of your body, out of your thinking head into your moving body, getting outside if you're inside, if you're sat down, stand up. So there's so many different things that will take you out of that. Yoga. Some people say I just like to go for a long run, or I get on my bike, or I listen to some music. You've got binaural beats, you've got solfeggio frequencies, all of these kind of brain that help your brain get back into sync, basically, and out of this, fight or flight mode. It's just, the om, or the, beautiful, calm music, nature. It could be playing with your kids. It could be anything, really. I think the key thing is finding out what works best for you. As I mentioned, I start my day with, a 20-minute meditation, and a 20-minute stretching, because it's slowly bringing my body into this real world, after being in a nice sleep, that I'm still in this kind of in-between stage. I'm not fully awake. So I think to be able to kind of sit with myself and then see what flows in. I don't kind of stop thoughts and just say, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll write that down afterwards. And then just stretching my body and then hydrating it. And then I go to the gym, or go for a swim, or go for a walk. But I definitely don't look at my emails. I don't look at my emails till like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I just think everybody else can wait. Everybody else can wait, and again at night, how many people are looking at the phone, blue light, or the TV, or the screen, and then expecting to get a good night's sleep. It just doesn't happen, if the
it'd be like, taking a bunch of sugar in right before you go to
exactly
to sleep, right? You're consuming something.
Yeah. So it's looking at daily habits. If, I say to people, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And if it's pick up my phone and answer emails, or listen, answer WhatsApp, then we're going to break that habit. What's the last thing you do at night before you sleep? We're going to break that habit. So it's actually just doing the small, daily, consistent things that compound. I'm not saying change your whole life. I'm saying, okay, instead of doing this, just wake up and do this instead. Give yourself some time.
It's being intentional.
Yeah.
Being intentional.
Yeah.
It's creating a daily experience whereby you are intentionally choosing how you're going to begin your day, how you're going to respond when certain things happen, how you're going to be ending your day. And I appreciate that you said it. You got to know what works for you, because I don't know what's going to work for Zara. I couldn't tell you. I could ask her questions and hopefully she could come to that conclusion, or she has to experiment. Try this way, try that way, see what works. And you brought up your meditation practice, and I get curious because I practice meditation regularly as well. You mentioned you observe what comes up. Is there is it a specific type of practice, a certain technique? Is it just to sit and observe? Is it I observe my breathing? Does it change? I'm curious.
Yes, yeah. What I'm doing at the moment is a 20-minute meditation to the sound of Om, which is like, the universal frequency of nature, 432 hertz. So I just like that Om, sometimes, I focus on breaths. When I very first started, many, many years ago, I focused on the flame, a candle of a flame, and anytime I felt my thoughts going off, I'd just come back to the flame and focus on the flame. So there's guided meditations, there's a moving meditation, there's something called Kinyin, which is like a walking slow meditation, yes, exactly. And even Tai Chi, it's just slow movements, just flow. It's not this first thing in the morning, that comes a little bit later, when I'm at the gym, and I'm really, because it's this like kind of ascension, gradual, I've just come from this beautiful deep sleep. So I don't need the like music blaring out, or, noise, or, my husband knows just to do not talk to me for the first hour, because you're not going to get anything out of me. So this is the thing about setting boundaries. And to Zara, I would say, what brings you joy? Because we often put joy aside. We put work, 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 work. And no, I couldn't possibly do something that I really enjoy. It's like, where did that come from? Give yourself that gift. Maybe it is meeting some friends for lunch, and just, you don't take calls during that lunch. Walking in the park, instead of sat at your desk eating your lunch, to change the pattern, to change the states, and say, yeah, I might go to an art gallery just for 30 minutes, and it changes my state. I'm looking at beauty. I might go and sit in the garden. Yeah, it's finding what brings you joy, and what brings you joy will give you a lot of energy. That's for sure. So I think joy is overrated as a superpower. People talk about taking breaks. I say take a joy break. Do something. This micro moment of joy that brings a smile to your face. Who is it? Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. The positivity ratio, that you need 5 positive emotions, and they don't have to be huge ones, but just moments of joy to every one negative emotion, because generally speaking, the brain has a negativity bias. 5 people say, hey, you look great today, and one person says, you look tired today. Guess what you think
Yeah,
about? You think, oh, I look tired. So
exactly. I use the analogy of with social media, you could get 10 comments of how great a post was, but the one critical one is the one that triggers you the most. It's the one that you don't stop thinking about, right?
yeah,
And you ignore the fact that 10 other people loved what you had to say. It was only
exactly.
one person that was critical of you. And you know how social media works. People are just trolling. They're just trying to
Yeah,
get a reaction out of you. Have you read Siddhartha by Herman
I
Hesse? Have
have.
you read that book?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I thought you were gonna.
Yeah, I just from
Go ahead.
what were you saying?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just from how you answered that, it made me think of that book, and it's one of
Mm.
my personal favorites. It's something I read every year.
Beautiful. I thought, Jay, that you were going to ask me, have you read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? And this is really, I mean, super simple. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't do it, just say, hey, I can't do that. I'd love to help you, but I can't. No gossiping. Second one, don't take anything personally. And that's a huge one. It's really huge. It sounds simple. Don't make assumptions, ask lots of questions, and then always do your best. So some days, you don't have that much to give, but if you give of your best, then you're doing well. And then there's the 5th agreement, because obviously his son came up with the 5th agreement, was be skeptical, but listen, and that's actually being, it's my way or the highway, compared to, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it like that. You might be skeptical, but you listen, because that's how you learn and grow, and resilience for me is having that openness and flexibility. There's 9 different routes up Kilimanjaro. If one is closed, you've got 8 other options, and be open to
Yeah.
that. I live in the United Arab Emirates. There's over 100 different nationalities, all ages, all backgrounds, all religions. And I'm open to that. I'm not saying, you need to believe and act and have the same values as me. So there's a lot of this cross-cultural, cross-generational exposure. And for me, that is wonderful. It adds so much.
Yeah. The Four Agreements, I recently highlighted that in one of my newsletters about that being the book of the week that I shared with
Amazing.
my audience, because I love that book. The audio is actually really good. It's narrated by Peter Coyote, so it's
Okay.
a really good listen for anyone who would want to listen to a good audiobook. I'd highly recommend that one as well.
Yeah.
And so, Julie, I want to invite you to consider this scenario. Let's say Zara were to join you on an expedition. Okay, so she's with you, and as you're walking with her, she tells you her story of what she's going through, and you listen, you acknowledge what she's working through, and you have an opportunity to ask her a question. What would you ask her first, and why?
Yeah. I mean, if she's actually said, this is what's happening in my life, this is how I feel, I think I would say, well, what would you like instead? Because most of us know the answer. I'd like to feel joy. I'd like to feel I have more energy. I'd like to have more time. I'd like to. And so then knowing that that's what I feel like this, I want to feel like this, then we know what we can do, that we can work together. We can share some ideas, some strategies to say, we can, you've identified how you'd like to feel. You know how you feel right now. So you're very self-aware and you maybe understand why you're feeling like that. So now we need to get to how you want to feel and let's work on that,
Yeah.
So I think, we all have the answer. So it's just, as you mentioned, Jay, it's the power of the questions. Instead of saying, yeah, I understand you. No, you don't. Nobody knows exactly how somebody's feeling because it's so really different. Say, I hear you. What would
I hear
I
you.
hear you. I see you. What would you like to feel instead? And then she said, I'd like to feel da 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 da. Great, you've identified, and we can come up with some solutions. So, I'm sure there's
Right.
other ways, but that's the first thing that jumped to mind. Well, what would you like to feel instead? Yeah.
I love it. I think it then gives somebody the door to walk through to get to the other side where they are creating in their own minds what they would like to be experiencing. Julie, thank you so much for the time that you spent with me to chat and talk through these incredible ways of thinking that I never really considered. The components of nature that you brought into this conversation, I think were very valuable for me personally. And for anyone listening, if you want to learn more about Julie's work, it is julie-lewis.com. That's JULIE-LEWIS.com. We'll, of course, include that into the show notes as well as some other links where people can find you. Julie, thank you again for
No,
taking time out of your day to chat with me.
thank you so much for this opportunity. It's beautiful. I mean, you're across miles and miles away, and but we're just connected through this digital highway and through just common values and a love of people and love of wanting to help people find their way. Not tell them do this, do this, do this. It's like asking the questions so that they actually they understand and they find their own way with our support. So yeah, that's beautiful.
What I loved about that conversation with Julie was how she used metaphor. She used ways to explain concepts so that it really sticks with you. The trees, for example, is one I haven't forgotten since that conversation. It stayed with me, and I hope it stays with you. And I'll do my best to synthesize this down for us into 3 insights and 3 actionable takeaways. The first insight: nature is your medicine. Through nature, you can broaden your perspectives. You can gain clarity. You can have real life experience in nature, which can then teach you things that you could never learn just by studying them. So get out into nature. Have that be part of your life. The second insight: stand strong like a mountain, flow like water, think like a forest. Stand strong like a mountain. Have a strong foundation, a resilient, very capable foundation. Be adaptable. Flow like water. She said there are 9 different ways to climb Kilimanjaro, and not having yourself attached to only one way. Be fluid. And then to think like a forest. If one tree is struggling, the other trees help. They collaborate. There's a interconnectedness. And if you can think like that, then it will humble you to not feel like you couldn't ask for help if needed, and also realize that if something goes wrong with you, it's affecting the whole forest. It's affecting everyone else. Third insight: self-care is self-respect. Taking care of yourself means you respect yourself. And we use those 3 words, and I've used it in the past, so you can be a great parent, a great worker, a great leader, a great partner. We have seasons in our lives, and there's seasons of work, and then we have seasons of rest, just like nature. Nature's not always doing. Sometimes what you see in nature is there's a resting period, and that applies to all of us. Our actionable takeaways: first of 3, cultivate self-awareness. This is a practice. This requires intention. To be able to know your own strengths, your values, your leadership style. And then when you're talking with people, to actively listen, to have that kind of awareness of their emotional state. That social awareness, it's so key. And it doesn't happen on its own. You have to be intentional. It needs to be a practice for you. Second actionable takeaway, be humble and ask for help. Also, set those boundaries. Somebody asks you to do something, I would love to, and then you continue with your reason why you can't. And if you feel like you need help, raise your hand. Ask for it. You are not supposed to do this all on your own. The third actionable takeaway, interrupt the pattern. If you see yourself going into that stressful, anxiety-ridden, overwhelming thought pattern, become aware of your breath. Meditate, get out into nature, move your physical body, do something to interrupt the pattern. Allow yourself to get back into sync. And then she also mentioned about how for every negative emotion, we want to bring in 5 positive emotions. That is a practice. That is an actionable thing that you can take away from this conversation. Join us on Friday. I'm going to dive deeper into this idea of connection, interconnectedness, thinking like a forest. I recently reread Awareness by Anthony DeMello. It's a book I read every year. Every time I read it, I learn something new. I have to keep pausing. I listen to the book, by the way. I don't read the physical. I'm a auditory listener, so auditory learner. And so I'm listening to this book and I keep pausing it and I keep writing notes. I keep writing notes. And I thought that I could share some of the lessons that I got this year with you because it applies to our day-to-day. It applies to work. It applies to how we show up. It applies to how we can be resilient in these crazy times we're in where there's so much change. I know that these lessons are going to help me, and I'm certain they will help you. So join us on Friday for that episode. And until next time, thank you so much for listening.